Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, School at Home Made Easier, the Magic of Focusing on Strength. We are absolutely thrilled to be joined today by host Mariaemma Willis. Mariaemma is co-founder of Learning Success Institute and co-author of The Self-Portrait Power Traits Assessment and the books Midlife Crisis Begins in Kindergarten and Discover Your Child's Learning Style. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the chat box. And once Mariaemma has finished her presentation, we will get to as many as we can at the end. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Mariaemma.
Thank you so much, Kaylin. I'm so happy to be here again. I've had a long relationship, as you know, with Homeschool Buyers Co-op for many years. So this is always fun for me. And I'm going to now turn myself off and put my PowerPoint up. So here we go. Okay, let's see. All right, here we go. I hope everybody can hear me because suddenly I don't have a sound, but I think that's just because I'm sharing the screen. So anyway, welcome. School at Home Made Easier, the magic of focusing on strengths. And so I really hope that by the end, if you haven't thought that school at home is easy, that you will find it easier. And that you will really, really get the idea of focusing on strengths and how magical that can be. So here's one of my favorite cartoons. This is actually a quote from Albert Einstein. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And so somebody made a cartoon for it, and the cartoon says, "For a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree." So of course we know that's absurd and it's, just not going to work. And that's the same thing really for people. We're all different. And if we give everybody the same exam, so to speak, a whole bunch of people are going to fail. And that's actually what the traditional school system does. They actually do give the same exams to everybody. So here we're talking about focusing on strengths. So what's the problem with focusing on weaknesses? That's kind of what, we've been trained that if you're weak in something, you're supposed to work on it. Well, here are people that work with adults, the gurus that talk about motivation and goal setting and how to get to where you want to be when you're an adult. And so here's what some of them have said. Often children are told to focus on their weaker subjects and not spend so much time on the ones they do well in. Wrong. This does not give you a competitive edge. It just keeps you average. In fact, it's an absolute insult to your integrity to major in minor things. That's from The Power of Focus by Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, and Les Hewitt. And so then, parents and teachers always say to me, well, what does that mean? So if they're weak in writing, we're not going to work on it? No, it doesn't mean that. So just hang on. This is a more effective approach. And this is a quote from Arthur Levine, past president of Columbia Teachers College. In the future, the teacher will no longer be the talking head at the front of the classroom, but the expert in children's learning styles comparable to a medical doctor. So what's interesting here is that because of what's going on right now with our COVID, with coronavirus, the teacher actually is not the talking head at the front of the classroom, and more people are having to do school at home in one way or another. So I think this is so pertinent right now, just for all parents, and it doesn't even matter if you start back to school in September or later on, if you are an all-time homeschooler, or if you're just doing school at home right now, or if your kids go to school and it's just about the homework part, this still can relate to all of you parents at home. So my philosophy, your strengths are your blueprint for success. A primary job of parents is to guide their children in discovering their unique gifts. And those gifts are their blueprints for life success. The gifts, in a way, are their guides to discerning who they are and then to become confident adults, eager to contribute to the world. But this is what happens a lot. It's untapped brilliance. Dennis the Menace cartoon, he says, I got a lot of answers, but no one ever asked the right questions. I just remember so often with being in elementary school, and see, I was the A student, and I was always thinking, why aren't these other kids just doing what they're supposed to do? Then they won't get in trouble, just, do your homework, do your work. But as I got older, when I was 10, 11, 12, I started to notice, wait a minute, those kids that are getting the C's, D's, and F's, they're smarter than I am. And I was getting the A's. And I really, for some reason, started to pay attention to that. And I realized, oh my gosh, they just know all this stuff in history and science and lots of subjects. And they're articulate in those subjects, but they just don't get how to write it, like in a report or the essay test, or even memorize questions, for true, false, or whatever the tests, whatever kind of test. But they really did know a lot more than I did. So it's just like this. They had a lot of answers, but no one ever asked them in the way that they could give it back. And I think that all of you can relate to that, whether it's for yourself, this idea that this happened to you, or whether it was your brother or your niece or your own children, you can see this in them. So where do discouragement and low self-esteem come from? Well, it often begins with school. Kids are judged so much by how they do in academics. The self-images that they develop while learning, we call it learning, it stays with them and affects their whole lives. When we have workshops for adults, which have nothing to do with school, we're just doing personal development or professional development, they're the ones that bring up what happened to them in school and how it's really affected them as adults, that they don't believe they are capable or that they can go that next step or do what they really want to do for their careers. If you learn growing up that you are not very smart, you're not good enough, you have nothing to contribute, and even possibly learn that you are a failure, or that's what you believe, then that is what you will believe as well as an adult. So what do children often hear? If your spelling doesn't improve, you can't be on that team. Well, those are great ideas, but your writing is so messy. You need to be more responsible and study harder. Well, finally, you got a B. Next time, I hope you get an A. No playing outside until you finish your homework. You might be good at whatever it is, but that won't get you far in life. If you don't take school seriously, you'll never get anywhere, believe it or not. I have heard teachers say this to preschoolers. So I think that most of us can identify with these types of statements. Either they were told to us, or perhaps we are saying them now because we think that they're going to make a difference and the kids are going to shape up or think, oh my gosh, I better do something because I want to get somewhere. But it's just not how it works. Here's some more. You have to go to college. You have to get into a top university. We expect you to become whatever, a doctor, a lawyer, a gardener, whatever it is. We need you in the family business, or forget whatever they're interested in. All the good jobs are in technology, or whatever word you want to substitute for that. That's not a real job. How will you support yourself? Often that's said to kids who are artistic and want to go into some form of the arts. I've even heard a parent say that to a student who was really interested in being a firefighter. Oh, well, you'll never get there. It's really tough to get into. being a firefighter. So, and then that ultimate question, you want to do what? Sometimes kids say, I want to be a skateboarder. I want to be a surfer. You know what? Let them explore it. It's fine. They probably won't end up doing that. But if they really, really, really want to do that, then they will, and they will be successful at that. So some make it in spite of these messages that they're given, but the majority don't. For example, this is somebody who did go on in spite of what was said. This is his high school report card of John Gurdon. He was the winner of the 2012 Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. And it says, his work has been far from satisfactory. Several times he has been in trouble because he will not listen, but will insist on doing his work in his own way. I believe he has ideas about becoming a scientist. On his present showing, this is quite ridiculous. It would be a sheer waste of time, both on his part and of those who have to teach him. So there you have it. Now, how can we give positive messages? Here are some examples. I love how creative you are. Oh, you're so funny. You always make me laugh. If that's what you choose, I'll help you get there. Well, let's figure out if college is right for you, or perhaps which college is right for you. Sometimes college really is the appropriate thing, but you have to find the one that fits that student. Let's come up with ideas to improve your spelling. How about if you take a break? And this is my favorite. The counselor says, Sarah needs to work on her handwriting, and her mother is thinking, my child's going to be a doctor. I love that cartoon. All right, so now let's talk about focusing on strengths, because if you know your child's strengths, really know them, and your child knows them, then that's where the magic lies. And by the way, this is for all teachers, whether you're the parent teacher or the teacher at school. Everything I'm saying here applies to every teacher. So in the system that I use, that actually I created with Victoria Hodson years ago, we have several areas of strengths. And to us, they're like the adjustable seats. You have adjustable seats in cars and airplanes, wherever, because one size does not fit all. So we're going to look at dispositions. We're going to look at modalities. We're going to look at talents. We're going to look at interests, and we're going to look at environment. And I'm putting up all of the terms that go with each of those. You don't have to memorize them. I'm going to go through and talk about them, but this is just so that you can kind of see the chart all at once here. So the disposition power traits, those are our learning personalities. They are what others see about us. They show up at an early age, 2 or 3 years old. You already are seeing different personalities, and the kids are tiny, and they affect how we learn, work, and communicate. Different people have different needs for learning. So if you have a spontaneous disposition, you really need to move, and movement and fun incorporated into your learning and games really work for spontaneous people. Curious disposition, they need to question. That's probably what was going on with that Nobel Prize winner that we just saw the report card a few slides ago. He doesn't listen. He wants to do it in his own way, but he was questioning. He's curious, and he needed to discover and tinker. And that's what makes the scientists and inventors so amazing. That's their genius, because they are so curious and they question everything. We don't want to squelch that. Okay, the supportive disposition for them, it's important to interact, to collaborate, and to discuss. The imaginative people, Time to wonder, create, and imagine. And the organized, that was me, that is still me. That's the one that's got the perfect disposition for traditional school. You plan ahead, you have a structure, you have step by step. But again, I'm not saying that everybody else doesn't need to learn to plan and have a structure and do step by step. But we need to first acknowledge and encourage their own dispositions, because all of these dispositions are equal. It's not like one is better than the other. It's not that the organized is better than the other. I have it separated here just to show that that's the one that is valued so much. Now, spontaneous people are very often labeled hyperactive. The curious and the imaginative are often labeled ADD, attention deficit disorder, because there's so much in their heads and it seems like they're not paying attention. But when they hear something or read something, it sparks something else. And that's where the imagination comes from, and the questioning and the curiosity, that they might miss what the person is saying next if the teacher's talking, that kind of thing. The supportive people often are looked at as disruptive and talking too much because they need to interact and collaborate. And the organized people are the perfect disposition for the traditional learning setup, which, by the way, in a class of 30 to 40 students, there are maybe 2 to 5 who are the dominant, who are dominantly the organized disposition. And actually, the majority in any class are made up of the curious and imaginative dispositions. So we have all these lost potentials because the majority of inventors, scientists, entrepreneurs, musicians, poets, philosophers, and artists of all kinds, and then creative people, all kinds of creative people, are generally the curious dispositions, also the spontaneous dispositions, and the imaginative dispositions. And these are also the students who, as I said before, often labeled ADD, ADHD, but also could be labeled dyslexic and learning disabled. They experience failure almost daily, some more than others. They don't realize how smart they are, and they don't know that they have unlimited possibilities. So they grow up believing they have nothing to contribute. Now, here's an example of tailoring a subject to each of the dispositions. So the first one is the curious disposition. That's the icon we have for it. And so if you're studying about the ocean, this disposition could have the option to invent or draw or make a new kind of sea creature or anything, as long as it involves inventing and, you know, research and coming up with something new. The next one is the organized disposition. So this is sort of the basic things that you get, this basic type of assignment: list the major oceans and seas of the world and write 6 important facts about each. Organized people really do like to do stuff like that. It's not boring to them. Now the imaginative person is next. Perhaps they would like to draw or paint or make a scrapbook or a collage to show elements about the ocean and whatever they're studying. The supportive disposition is next. And so because they like to collaborate and discuss, they could be working with other people, 2 or 3 people, designing something, coming up with perhaps a new way of doing things underwater, or whatever it is that they come up with. But the important thing is that they can work with others and collaborate on it. And the spontaneous, this is just one example. They might write a rap song, but they could also do a skit, act things out, jump rope while they're giving their presentation. It's all about movement and fun and games. So they might also want to create a game that is about the ocean study. And then, you know, the teacher, the parents, whoever's around other kids can actually play the game. All right, modality power traits. The modalities are our information processing equipment. It's what is the best way for your brain to take in and process ideas, information, and learning of any kind. So we've got the listening and verbal modalities. Listening, pretty self-explanatory. They do well when they can hear the voice of others. It might be through audiobooks. It might be through lectures, somebody just presenting information, but it might be through videos. And what's interesting is that somebody that is a pure listening modality person is distracted by the video part. So you might catch them sort of looking away or closing their eyes and just listening because they need the sound part. The verbal person needs to hear the sound of his own voice. And so there are several ways to do that. Teacher explains something to somebody else, reading out loud, discussing with others. Those are all verbal means of doing that. Now, this is an interesting one because I have so many examples of students continually going up to the teacher or the parent saying, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do here. I don't get what these instructions say. Let's say it's a worksheet or instructions on an assignment. And so usually the adult says something like, well, just read it out loud. So they start reading it out loud and they say, oh, I get it. And they go back and they do it. And then they're back again. I don't understand what this means. And usually the adult thinks they're like just being disruptive or they want attention or whatever. But that's not the case. The thing is that the minute somebody says read it out loud and they start to read it out loud, they understand it, but nobody is catching that. So if you think that that's going on with your student or child, whoever you're teaching, let them know that that's okay to do and that, maybe they need to go in the corner if there are other people around and they need quiet. But that's the trick. They need to read it out loud. So encourage them to do that. And then eventually they can learn to whisper it to themselves. They'll just learn strategies for doing that. By the way, all of these things we're talking about, they're life skills. They aren't just for now to get their history done or get through their math. These are life skills. They are learning strategies for themselves that will last a lifetime. Now, 85% of traditional classroom instruction requires excellent listening skills, and only about 22% of learners have that listening modality. So that's another thing to really pay attention to. Now, here's the picture modality. Illustrations, images, charts, graphs, videos, maps. Flashcards will not work. Flashcards that just have words on them will not work for a picture learner. Words are not pictures. This is really important for students who need a picture learning type of reading program. And we don't have time to go into that today, but if anybody is having an issue with reading for their child or student, feel free to contact me. I think my contact information is up, but if not, I'll give it at the end because I will give you some ideas. We so often think that they're going to memorize those word flashcards, and they might for 10 minutes, but that's why the next day they still can't pass the test. And that goes for spelling as well. All right, now print modality, that's what we wish everybody had. These are the people who are good with reading. 95% of school studies require excellent print processing skills, and about 14% of students are print learners. Again, we're not saying, oh, they don't have to learn to read. That is not what I'm saying at all. Yes, of course they do. And even when they learn to read, that will still probably not be their primary modality. So to continue to require even a good reader whose primary modality is not print should not be required to do everything with print, because we have all of these other options, especially nowadays with all of our technology. So pay attention to the dominant modalities of your students. So here are the movement modalities: whole body, where they actually need to build something or experience it or act it out or just be in it, be a part of it. The hands-on, we're kind of used to learning about that, you know, taking apart, making something, touching it. The sketching learner, these people get in trouble a lot because they naturally want to draw and doodle, and the drawing and doodling is often what helps them to pay attention to voice. So when the teacher's talking, when the parent is giving instructions, you might see them trying to doodle or sketch something. And a lot of times the message is, don't do that, look at me and listen. But that's what was enabling them to be able to focus on what you were saying, because they needed to keep their hands busy doing something. So again, pay attention to that. The writing learners, those are the ones, that's one of mine. Taking notes, making outlines, seeing the words on paper, and then later you can remember what you wrote. Now, 50 to 60% of students are whole body, hands-on learners. Okay, so again, let's pay attention to that. Now, ways that students get in trouble for their modality needs. I mentioned a few of these. For the auditory, the verbal people need to say it out loud, and so often get in trouble for that, because the adult is saying, be quiet, everybody else needs quiet, and you're disturbing everybody. So again, let's teach them strategies for doing that in a way that works for everybody. The visual people, if they're picture learners, they need to see it. Print alone will not do it. And for the movement people that need to touch and do and doodle, it's obvious that how they often get in trouble, especially the person who keeps bouncing out of their desk, you know, to sharpen their pencil a million times. It's because they need to move. They don't know what else to do. The ones that are in black here, listening, print, and writing, those are the perfect modalities for traditional school. So we have the perfect disposition, which was the organized disposition. And now we have the perfect modalities, listening, print, and writing. And as we've seen, all of these sort of perfect styles are in the minority. And that's why only 2 to 5 kids in every classroom get all the A's. Now, interests are our most powerful motivators. A person will work hard and long when the topic is of interest. Everybody kind of knows that, right? For yourself, if you're really interested in something, you'll spend hours on it, even when something's hard. But you know that it's possible, and you know that if you keep going, you'll come up with a solution. So let's find those interests and capitalize on them. They will drive learning when nothing else will, and they can even outdo talent. People are not always interested in what their inborn talents are. But if they have an interest and a passion for it, that's what will drive them. So whenever possible, allow students to link their learning to their interests. The sad thing is that interests are often considered privileges that you can take away if the student doesn't do what he's supposed to do, right? You can't be on the soccer team, no camping this weekend for you, whatever it is. And again, this is just not going to work. It just causes resentment, and it reinforces that the student is not capable and not smart. So many students give up on their interests altogether. They don't become more motivated because you're doing that to them. They figure, well, I'm never going to get there, so why bother? They grow up to be adults who have no idea what they like or believe their interests have no value. We talk to these adults all the time. And these are not people who are like living on the street. I'm talking about your next door neighbor or even the CEO of a company or anybody, but they don't believe in themselves and they think that they're fakes, and they got, if they are, quote, successful as the world sees them, they think they got there by accident and somebody's going to decide they're not smart enough to be there. All right, so let's integrate interest with the subjects being studied, which works so much better. So for example, if you're doing chemistry, let's do chemistry of cooking. There are some great books out there that are fun and even funny about the chemistry involved in cooking. Maybe it's horses. Let's do the history of horses. The physics of skateboarding. All of these examples I've used myself with the homeschooling students that I coach. So if they've got history and they're interested in horses, or maybe they're interested in pyramids, whatever it is, that's where we start. Make a photo journal for literature, put on skits, create games. All right, the environment power traits. Our surroundings are really important, and they're often taken for granted and we don't pay attention to them, but they can greatly affect our ability to think, learn, and work. And often it's just a simple change that can really turn things around. So these are all the environmental conditions that can affect people focusing, paying attention, and learning. Sound, music, noise, quiet, body position, sitting, reclining, standing, the lighting, is it too bright? Is it too dim? Is it the natural light that works better? Temperature. For some people, this is crucial if they're too hot or if they're too cold. Colors, this seems silly, but if it really makes a difference for a particular student, then let's personalize or encourage them to personalize it. Pencils, pens, notebooks, the tablecloth on the table. I had one mom wrote us because she, the student took the self-portrait online, and so she learned all these things about her daughter. And she said, I knew that white wasn't her favorite color, but I wasn't, thinking of that. But when I saw that as one of the results on the self-portrait assessment, like it was on paper that this was not her favorite color and this other one is her favorite color, I was thinking, oh my gosh, the table she works on is white. And the issue was that she took forever to do her homework. So the mom all of a sudden thought, oh my gosh, let's change, I'll put a cloth on the table that is her favorite color. And it changed everything. All of a sudden she could sit there and do her stuff and be done. Now, it's not going to always happen, really that fast. And not everyone has the same issue. So for somebody else, color might not matter at all and just doesn't matter. But sometimes it is that simple. And that's why I say it's the magic of using strengths, because you look at it, you go, oh my gosh, that was like magic. So let's pay attention to the environmental influences as well. Time of day can be crucial. Few students are morning alert. So especially now that so many people have to do schooling at home, let's pay attention to that. So perhaps they don't have to get up so early, or if you still want them to get up at the regular time that they're used to, for going to school, then maybe start off with exercise or some other activity that'll get their brain going before they actually start into their academics. Okay, groupings. Some people do better working alone. Some like working with a couple other people or in small groups. But again, this isn't something you can always put together. If you have an only child and he's at home right now and he prefer to work in a small group, there's not a small group. Maybe you can get a remote small group. And I know a lot of teachers and schools are setting this up too. But the idea is to explore all of these things. And then snacks. Some need them, some don't while they're working. I do want to say here, you can't provide every single preference for every single person. So don't think that I'm saying, you know, look at every little thing and everybody. You have to provide all of these things for everybody in your house or in your classroom. It's impossible. However, there are things that can be adjusted. And the best way to figure it out is to, well, first of all, to know everybody's styles, strengths, power traits, whatever you want to call them, and then have them figure out what can work for them. And so as a group, either at home with your family or at school in the classroom, you all kind of work on, okay, well, you know, temperature's not that big a deal for me, but you know what? If I could sit by the window, that would be really great because natural light is better for me. So it's like that, so that you honor as many of the learning needs as possible. And what happens then is students just really get into it because nobody ever asks them anyway what will work for them. And so when you do, that is like the highest form of respect, that you really want to know what works for them. What are their strengths? You're acknowledging them and you're encouraging them. Okay, so back to the environment. The preferences in traditional school are quiet, sitting at a desk and being alone. And as we saw, that just doesn't work for everybody. Talents. Talents are our natural gifts, and they are just the skills that we're born with in a way. It's an ease for learning or doing something. Of course, they can be refined, but you're kind of born being an artist or being able to act or being able to read everything. These are our gifts that if we give them a chance, that's what makes us stand out. But they're not always things we're interested in pursuing, as I said earlier. So talents can also be mishandled, forcing students to pursue talents that they don't want to pursue, or failing to encourage students to pursue talents that they are interested in. So they might be very talented in music, but perhaps the adults around them don't think that that would create a good enough job for them. And so they're discouraged from pursuing that talent. So here are some talent areas: music, word language, math logic, mechanical, the 3D talent, body coordination, self-care, people, nature, animals, humor, life enhancement. Now, if you want to know more about all these areas, you can actually go to our website, powertraitsforlife.com. It's free. You can see all of the areas that I'm talking about and broken down by appropriate ways of learning and studying for each of these styles. And then if you're interested, I know Kaylin is going to give a special link for our self-portrait assessment, which is always on the Homeschool Buyers Co-op site. It's one of the products that they have there, but we are giving a special discount during this webinar time. So if you wanted to know more about it before you decided to purchase it, you can go to powertraitsforlife.com and see all of the types of information that you would get from it. All right, so the laws, we came up with laws at our Learning Success Institute for successful learning to occur. Learning doesn't have to hurt. Success leads to more success. And coaching brings out the star. And this approach leads to engagement, motivation, confidence, endurance, and contribution. And I think that as parents and teachers, those are all things we can agree on for our children and our students. I just love this picture of this little kid. I'm going to change the world, it says. All right, we also have a book, Discover Your Child's Learning Style. It's available at bookstores or on Amazon, and there's a Kindle version as well. And then this is the special that Kaylin will talk to you about for 8 years to adult, and it's going to be only $10 each until August 10th for the webinar special. And that just says that on our website it's $35 normally, so it's a big break. Okay, a final thought. This is from Pablo Casals called You Are a Marvel. Each second we live is a new and unique moment of the universe, a moment that will never be again. And what do we teach our children? We teach them that 2 and 2 make 4, and Paris is the capital of France. But when will we also teach them what they are? We should say to each of them, do you know what you are? You are a marvel. You are unique. In all the years that have passed, there's never been another child like you. Your legs, your arms, your clever fingers, the way you move. You may become a Shakespeare, Michelangelo, a Beethoven. You have the capacity for anything. Yes, you are a marvel. And when you grow up, can you then harm another who is like you? A marvel? You must work, we must all work to make the world worthy of its children. So that's it. I'm going to stop my screen sharing in a second, but I do want you to know that if you want to contact me, you can go to schoolmadeeasier.com and all of my, like my email, my phone number, in case you have a question that either isn't covered here or I think this is being recorded, so you can listen to it later and send me a question if you need to. Okay, thank you so much, and we'll have questions now. So let me stop sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mariaemma. That was
Welcome.
absolutely fascinating. And I want to remind everybody that if you have any questions, you can go ahead and just put them in the chat box and we'll get through as many as we can in the time we have remaining. So I know there's been a lot of chatter going on. So first, oh yeah, which reminds me, first thing I'll start my video so you guys aren't just looking at a blank screen. I do want to let everybody know that we will absolutely be sending out an email with the link for this recording, so you will be able to review it at your convenience in perpetuity. And I will do everything within my power to make sure I can get that out today. So you should have that in just a few hours. So we did have a couple of questions to begin with. And again, please just keep typing them in that box and we'll get to the ones we can. So I have multiple children and they have completely different dispositions and modalities. How can I accommodate all of their needs?
Okay, I don't know how many when you say multiple,
question, right?
multiple children, but it doesn't matter. I mean, even if you have, there are big families with 7 or 8 children, so maybe that's what you mean by multiple, or maybe 3 or 4. So the first thing to do is have a family meeting. Well, the first thing to do actually is my recommendation is give them all the self-portrait assessment, because you want to know, and they want to know exactly what are their strengths. So once you've done that, you can have a family meeting. And if you don't want to do the assessment, that's fine too. Just go to powertraitsforlife.com and look at all of the different categories and, start observing and guessing what your kids are. And if you have younger kids, like maybe kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, they actually cannot take the self-portrait yet. But if you get our book, Discover Child's Learning Style, there are some things in there that can help you figure it out for the younger children. So once you know their strengths and you have their results printed out and they can look at them, you can look at them, have a family meeting and talk about it. And you'd be surprised at how easily this can come about, that especially the older kids, they can come up with, well, you know, if I could just have a corner, or if I could work under the table, or if I could have headphones on, or if I could have music while I'm working, all of these different things can make a big difference. And as I said, some of them are really simple things. So again, if you have more questions about that, contact me privately, but that's the way to do it. And a teacher can do it in the classroom. We have taught teachers to do this with many more students than you have it at home. So if they can do it, you can do it.
Excellent. Okay, so one thing we're getting a lot of is people asking where they can get the assessment at the huge discount. So I just actually put the direct link in the chat box. So anybody who wants to click on that can go through to the co-op and that they'll be able to get it there. And then we'll also include that in the email that we send with the recording. So you guys will have all the information in your email inbox, again, hopefully before the end of the day today, assuming I can get myself together.
And if somebody just goes to the Homeschool Buyers website, they can find it there too, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a search box, just type in Learning Style Assessment, Learning Success Institute, whatever you want to type in, you think it'll help you find it. I'm pretty sure our search will return it for you. So we've had a couple of people ask the same question about struggling readers in different ways. So I'm just going to ask the first one, or I'll use the phrasing from the first one we got, and hopefully it covers everybody's question. So I've been homeschooling our 6 kids for about 15 years now, which kudos to you. I've not had trouble teaching any of them to read up until now. I've been working with my 5th grader for a couple of years, and he just hasn't gotten the idea or been able to retain what he learns. One day he knows the sounds, the next day he doesn't remember. He's now 8 and finally understands phonics. Like, it's finally starting to click. I'm hoping he'll catch up quickly now, but do you have any ideas on how to help?
Okay, so the first thing we do really need to know his dispositions and modalities, because those are the clues. Now I'm guessing, because usually when a child has difficulty learning to read, usually we already can say they're not a print learner and they're not a writing learner. So they're either a picture or hands-on or a movement learner, something like that. And so we need to know that in order to choose the curriculum or the program or the strategy that will work for them. So I can't say more than that, because I would need to know when I do a consultation, for example. That's what I do. I look at all of that and then we come up with the right program. So I'm happy to, if whoever the people are that have these questions about this, if you do give the assessment to your kids and you want to chat for 5 or 10 minutes, I'm happy to do that. So just give me a call. And of course, if somebody wants a full consultation, I can do that too, but I'm happy to do it no charge or for a few minutes to give you some ideas.
Well, and then, so to get more specific, another person did ask specifically, do you have any strategies that might help a spontaneous whole body learner with reading?
Yes. I mean, so it depends on where that person is in reading, but let's say they're just now starting to learn the sounds. I don't know how old this child is, but
He didn't say.
Yeah, so maybe if they're just now learning the sounds, then it's anything with movement. Like you put maybe they're learning what T says and S and A says ah, and so you make cards and that say T, S, and the T, the S, and the A on the floor. They could bounce the ball and say ah, and then bounce it on another one and say t, or jump on a trampoline, or have a game where they can be moving the whole time. So that's what it means to incorporate movement into it. It's what Sesame Street does. I mean, that's why kids learn with that. It's the movement, the colors, the visual, all of that.
Interesting.
So I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Well, so that actually sort of ties into another question we had was, is there a video modality? Which I think they're asking is,
You mean like watching videos? Yes, that's the picture modality.
okay, so that translates into moving.
Yeah, that's the picture modality. I mean, it could just be that they just need to see a picture, but a lot of times it's actually the video. They need to see it, see it in action, in other words. Yes, I've done so many subjects, like for example, history through videos, because it's so easy to do that. You just look up the time periods and what even use a textbook as a guide and see the time periods, and then gather the either documentaries or movies or whatever that would be interesting to your child that has to do with that period in history.
Oh, that's a great idea. So then I have another two that are sort of tied together, which is, hold on, where did I put them? Okay. Is it ever too late to give the self-portrait assessment? My daughters are now entering 12th grade and are planning to attend college.
It's never too late. If anything, they would learn more strategies for when they do go to college. And not only for college, but for their life, like to know more about themselves. Yeah. And by the way, I encourage parents to take this too, not just the kids. So if you're a teacher or you're the parent, whatever, the adult in the kids' lives needs to take it too, because then you know more about you and you can discuss all of that, and the adults' needs as well, not just the kids' needs.
So helpful. And then the other one that was sort of tied to it is, sadly, I believe that I've been missing the mark with my more hands-on child. She's now on her way to 7th grade. Can I make it better at this point? Can I turn her self-esteem and feelings of her abilities and thoughts and lack of ability around?
Yes, I mean, I've done it with so many kids. The first thing to do is when they see their results that you just get so excited about it and go, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Look what it says here. You're a curious learner, you're this, you're that, and talk about it. And then say, I really want to meet your learning needs. Let's figure this out. Let's look, let's go look at Power Traits for Life website, or let's download the manual that comes with every self-portrait. You can print out the manual. Let's look up all the examples of what we can do differently. And they just light up. It's magic.
That's wonderful. And I think this one's sort of related too. My daughter loves to lower the bar to lower everyone's expectations of her. Is this a particular style, and is there a good strategy to work with this?
Wow, I wish I knew more about this. That might be because everything that she's experienced is so far from her style that it's discouraging or boring or whatever it is. It's a trauma for her to like, if she's used to doing worksheets and they're killing her, then she would maybe lower the bar because of that. So I really would need to know more, but it's not a style. People want to do their best. They want to believe they are accomplished and have that great feeling that they get when they have an insight and all of that. So no, it's not a style, and you really might want to explore that more, because if she's given things to do in a way that really speaks to her, she's going to thrive.
Excellent. Okay, sorry, we have a few. I'm sorry, everybody's coming in so quick and fast with questions for you. So I'm trying to keep up as best I can. So how do we break our own expectations with our own children that require them to sit all the time? We grew up sitting in a classroom and asked to be quiet all the time. Like, how do we change that behavior in ourselves?
Well, I mean, I grew up like that too, and that actually sort of works for me, except I like to work on the floor and I couldn't do that in school. So, I mean, if I can do it, you can do it. It has nothing to do with you. You can still prefer to work at the table and, or have an individual desk, whatever. It has to do with what meets the learning needs of the other people. So if it's on a beanbag chair or lying on the bed or whatever it is, if it works, it works. If it's having the cat crawling all over you while you're doing your work, if it works, it works. It's okay. So I think, I'm giving you permission to do that. I'm saying these are all legitimate ways, and it's intelligent to learn about what works for you. And it's intelligent to use what works for you. and not to wonder or worry about, well, it's never been done before, that's not the tradition, whatever. So you might be freeing yourself too as the parent, because perhaps you didn't like that either in school, and now you're stuck in that because that's what you learned. So maybe you can break out of that for yourself if you have a different style.
So we'll wrap it up with just a few questions that are learning style assessment specific. One is, do you have a Spanish version of the assessment?
Actually, we do.
Oh, great.
That's a great question. However, it's not available. Okay, so it won't be available as the public. It has to be purchased a little bit different way. So if anybody wants the Spanish one, they need to contact me.
And can you send me, or can you just tell everybody the best way to contact you? Is that via email?
Yeah. So my email is m@learningsuccesscoach.com. And also you can go to schoolatohomeMadeEasier.com. That's my personal website that has all my information there. And all my books, because I have other books too about making teaching easier and things like that. So you might.
Oh, that's great. That was one of our questions, was I see you've written all these books, but I can't find them. Where can I find them? So
schoolatohomeMadeEasier.com, and you'll see our main books are there.
Awesome. And then when we do the assessment, do we get any recommendations on how to apply the results?
Oh, yes. So when you're finished, you click finish and the results page shows up. And then at the bottom of that, it says, download the guide so you can print it all out if you want to, or go to powertradesforlife.com and it's all there. It's in written form on the pages, but it's also in Prezi form. So there are different ways of getting the recommendations.
Great. If my child asks for my feedback as they take the assessment, should I help them?
Oh, that's a great question. This is not a test. Okay, we're not, if the kids can't read well, or if they have a question about the instructions and how to do it, you can absolutely help them. Just don't choose the answers for them, or don't lead them like, are you sure that's what you want? You don't want to do that. But if you have to read the entire thing, you might have an older child who's not a great reader. If you have to read the entire thing, fine. And you know what? If you get it for yourself, take yours first. So then you'll see what it's like and you'll know what, how to help them take it.
Good suggestion.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mariaemma. Unfortunately, we're out of time today, and I really appreciate everybody who's intending for being so engaged and participating with us.
Because I could talk forever.
Again, if you would like help in discerning your child's needs, Mariaemma's Learning Style Assessment from the Learning Success Institute is available at the co-op for only $10, which is, I think I did the math, and it's 71% off retail price. And this is only available through August 8th, so be sure you get in there before that so you don't miss it. And I really want to thank you, Mariaemma, for sharing your time and experience with us. I find this absolutely fascinating, and it seems like the feedback we're getting from everybody else is that they do too. And also a big thank you to all of our attendees. It's an honor to be able to share part of your day with you. So we appreciate you taking the time to do that. So I wish everybody a really wonderful rest of your day and stay healthy.
And can I add just really quickly, because I saw a little question come by here. Yes, you do need one for each person. It's not like one thing. You need a separate assessment for each person in the family. So you'll love it. So enjoy, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.